Hey there, and welcome to the Confident Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Brooks. Join me as I sit down and chat with co-hosts, friends, and carefully curated guests and talk about all the things that empower you to become your best and most confident self. So, let's get started. Hey there, and welcome back. Today, I want to talk about starting over, and what it means to begin again in a new season, chapter, transition when you realize life isn't the same anymore, and neither are you. Most of us experience this at some point, and sometimes it comes with a new year, a major life change, a loss, or just a quiet realization that the life you built no longer aligns with who you are becoming. And this season has brought a lot of reflection for me. I've been asking questions like, who am I now? What matters most? What am I carrying that doesn't belong in this next chapter? What am I ready to rebuild because it no longer fits where I am going? And starting over, and while it sounds possibly empowering, can also feel quite daunting because living in it can feel uncomfortable and uncertain. And you may wonder why you're revisiting lessons and thought that you've already learned these things and you're moving forward, and you just start questioning so much. But growth, it isn't a one-time event. As life changes, priorities shift, and our understanding of ourselves deepen. And while we try to force an old version of life to fit who we are now, something eventually feels off. And that's when starting over becomes less about throwing everything away and more about telling the truth. Looking back over the past several years, I can see how much has changed, both externally and internally. There were seasons where I felt clear about what I was building, and others when I felt completely disconnected from it all. I think about the time when I was writing Chasing Perfection and how that journey had taught me so much about letting go and who I thought I should be, embrace the woman I was created to be. And while it helped me find my voice, I find myself in a whole different season all these years later. But the truth is, growth doesn't stop after one breakthrough. And confidence, healing, and self-discovery, they require ongoing attention because life constantly invites us into new levels of growth. And one of the biggest misconceptions about starting over is believing it means we failed, that we have hit the end of our road, and we have to start completely from nothing. But what I found is that, what if this is actually wisdom we're starting from? What if it's the moment we stop facing and forcing what no longer fit and give ourselves permission to build a life that reflects who we are today? And there have been times where I just felt caught between the life I built before and the one I'm still defining. And that in-between space, that part that could feel very uncertain because it often meets us where clarity begins. It's where we admit that the dream has changed. We stop pretending something feels fulfilled when it doesn't, and we give ourselves permission to pursue a life that feels aligned rather than just simply impressive or looks good on paper. And I'm still trying to figure all this out too in real time, but I don't have a perfect roadmap. And even if I did, I don't think that life works that way. So the more often that I find growth, it looks more like it's asking questions. It's noticing what feels heavy or giving life and taking the next step, even when you can't see that whole path. We often make change and feel so overwhelming that sometimes we never even begin. But maybe starting over starts with a simple question. What do I want my life to look and feel like? And I'm not talking about 5 years ago, and I'm not talking about what others expect. It's not what looks good online. We're not creating these perfectly curated reviews. I'm talking about what feels true to you today. You can have these titles, these relationships, these routines, responsibilities, all of it, and yet still feel so disconnected. And sometimes the answer to that question isn't about abandoning everything, but it's about reevaluating the foundation and make adjustments, bring your life back into alignment. So if you're in that place, know that you are not behind, you are not a failure, you're not too old, you're not too stuck, you're not too anything. And you are allowed to evolve, you're allowed to change your mind, And you're allowed to revisit the life you built without shaming the version of yourself who built it. Because every version of you was doing the best she could with what she knew at the time. And so starting over isn't just about rejecting who you are. It's about honoring what brought you here while deciding what no longer needs to come with you. And one of the best places to begin is with your values. What matters to you now? Not talking about overall or what was, but here, today, right now, in this very life. What do you want your mornings to feel like? What kind of relationships do you want? What do you want your work, your health, your faith, and your purpose to look like? And who do you want to be when nobody is watching? Then pay attention to what still brings you life. I know for me, for example, writing always brings me back to myself, and this podcast, of course, too. They aren't always easy, but they still carry enough energy and purpose, and it inspires me to create something, to share something, to put it out there into the world, to know that some way, somehow, my words are making a difference. At least they are for me. And I know that there are on the other end of this microphone and in the writings that I create. And maybe that's true for you. Maybe it's about creating something with intention and purpose. And sometimes that's how you just know that something belongs in your life, because you ask yourself, what still has life in it? And what are you holding on to just simply because you're afraid of letting it go? Part of growth is learning the difference between something that is challenging and something that is draining. And then once you realize that, you take these small steps, just one conscious, honest decision. You start with one boundary, one conversation, one habit that moves you closer to the person you want to become. And starting over doesn't have to mean burning everything down, but sometimes it just means returning to the basic. Go back to basics, the fundamentals, because you know it works. That's the foundation to what we build our life upon. And for me, that means caring for my physical, my mental, emotional, and spiritual health and well-being. Because when all those foundations are neglected, everything else feels harder. And sometimes the most meaningful next step is also the simplest. It's taking a walk, journaling, praying, resting, asking for help, setting a boundary and sticking to it, or reconnecting with habits that keep you grounded. And I think it's important to prioritize where you want to start and begin. And I don't think that we're looking to overhaul our entire life, but when we focus on these 4 pillars, how do you mentally want to feel? How do you emotionally want to feel? How deep do you want your spiritual walk to feel? And how do you want to feel physically with this full embodiment of who you are? Because those 4 pillars apply in our relationships, they apply in our professional lives, they apply in our personal lives, they apply into our health, our wealth, our well-being, right? I think for me, that's why I chose these 4 pillars, because that's something I could feel and tangibly measure each day. I know if what I'm trying to change is making a difference. And so when life feels overwhelming, I'm learning that I don't always need this bigger plan, but I need to be clearer and truer to these next steps. How do I want to feel in these 4 pillar departments? Because the truth is, the goal isn't to become a completely different person overnight. The goal is to become more honest, more present, aligned, and rooted in what truly matters most. And this is where faith comes in for me. I can only think and plan so much before I have to surrender. Starting over rarely gives you that whole map, right? And as scripture says, we can make our plans, but the Lord determines our step. So if you only get the next step, sometimes that has to be enough. And that's where trust grows. It's saying, I can move forward without having all the answers. I can begin again without knowing exactly how everything will turn out. I could trust God to lead me in a new season, even when I can't see the full picture. Maybe that's what creating a life you love really means. Not creating a perfect or impressive life, but just a true, honest one. A life that reflects your values and makes room for your humanity. It allows you to feel connected to yourself instead of performing for fulfillment. So if you're wondering where to start, begin right there with honesty. Ask yourself, what no longer feels aligned? What is draining you that you keep defending? What are you doing because an older version of you admitted to it? What do you say you want, but the choices keep distracting and contradicting it? Those answers aren't reasons for shame. They're just information. And now that you know, you can make different choices. Then ask yourself what you want more of moving forward. Do you want more peace, joy, more health, simplicity, creativity, connection, faith, purpose, rest? And then ask, what is one small decision I can make this week that moves me in that direction? Just one simple, small, consistent step that builds action and builds self-trust. And self-trust matters, especially when you're creating change. You make a promise, do it with honesty, clarity, and conviction, and you hold to it because it's something that's doable and it's something that you can keep. Then celebrate it, because these small wins rebuild momentum and they remind you that you're actively participating in your life, that you're showing up for you. Give yourself props. Because maybe that's the heart of this whole conversation, is that starting over isn't about proving something. It's about choosing the life that you want on purpose. It's about remembering that you're not stuck just because you don't know every step. It means that you're not behind just because you got to start all over again. It means you still have the power to shape your story, even when the path feels messy or uncertain. I know there are seasons when you're tired and you don't want to begin again, but maybe beginning again isn't proof that you failed. Maybe it's proof that you're still willing, you're still open, you're still listening, and you still have purpose in life. And that's what matters most. So as you move through this week, sit with this question. What would it look like to create a life you truly love from where you are now? Not from who you used to be or what was and what is still yet to come. And we're not talking about the old dreams or that old pressure. We're not talking about old expectations, but from here, today, from this version of you who has lived, learned, lost, grown, healed, changed, questioned everything, and then had rebuilt more times than you probably ever imagined. But the fact is you've rebuilt. You've had to do it before and you can do it again. So start there. And if all you can do today is take one small step back to yourself, let that be enough. It all starts with that one decision, one step, one day at a time. So give yourself grace and continue to move forward with clarity, confidence, and conviction. So until next week, take care and God bless.
Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Confident Woman Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Thanks again for listening.